And welcome back to coverage here from Grand Prix Providence in lovely little Rhode Island. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen, and we are into the 10th round here. This is the marathon section of a team GP. This is the point where you really have to keep it together. And looks like, oh, okay, I was actually wrong about who our coverage. I was half right. Cedric Phillips, Tim Aten, AJ Sacher, and are we watching Tim Aten versus Brian Haak right now? Okay, and they're playing against Soorani, Brian Haak, and Ryan Spring. Both of these teams are 7-2, so they've both squeaked into day 2 with the minimum requirement. And this is a big one, right? I mean, picking up a loss here, would we assume that they would be very hard-pressed to make top 4 if they picked up a loss here?
I think it's impossible.
Okay.
So, yeah, both these teams are going to need to rattle it off. Now, these are two teams that can do that.
Okay.
On one team you have Tim Aten, who is, the 3v3 draft format. That's his bread and butter.
It is.
He shows up to Grand Prix and doesn't even play in them and just 3v3 drafts the whole weekend regularly.
Okay.
So, somebody who is very familiar with the format. Brian Haak getting in there with a precinct captain, going to get a 1-1 out of that. That's pretty huge for him.
Yeah, turn 2 precinct captain's pretty sweet. They're going to get him a proper token here in a minute, I'm sure.
And it looks like a battering crisis is going to come down and start evolving. Now, the other team, Soorani, Brian Haak, and Ryan Spring, a team of 3 very strong players, but one of their players, Ryan Spring, you may never heard of. Another person who just goes to Grand Prix all the time and just 3v3 drafts, doesn't even play in the Grand Prix.
I didn't know that.
So you have two teams that have people who are very, very well suited for the 3v3 draft format.
Okay. Karras, the Guild Mage, here is a follow-up play for Tim Aten, but he doesn't have an attack that he deems acceptable. He'd rather keep his Crawl Warrior back to block the battering crisis. Even if it gets evolved, he can still trade off for it, so he's just going to ship the turn back. Unfortunately, it doesn't leave him any great blocks for the Precinct Captain, though it does give him the opportunity to trade Karras the Monitor for Precinct Captain, although a well-timed combat trick can really ruin his day if that was his line. So let's see what he wants to do first. Renounce the guilds.
Ooh.
Wow. The soldier's just a white soldier token, so there's only one multicolored permanent, and a main phase renounce is going to take down the Karras Guild Mage. Tim Aten does make the block, though, with the Krasis. Would you have attacked with the Krasis if you were Brian Haak?
I think so. I think that trade is good for you. I mean,
okay.
It just keeps the board empty. I mean, sure, the Krasis can, get bigger later on in the game, but so can the Crawl Warrior.
Sure.
And right now, this puts Tim on no permanence, especially if Brian has something like a pump spell in his hand. It's just going to be pretty good for him to just keep the board completely clear.
All right, I see that there's a Brush Strider in hand, but ooh, Advent of the Worm at instant speed for Tim Aten, and that is threatening to gobble up that Precinct Captain unless there's a giant growth or something in the near future here for Brian Haak. There's going to be a bit of a 2-for-1 here on Tim Aten's side, and there it is, 5/5 Trample Worm. Go to blocks.
I mean, he's got to just block the Precinct Captain here, I think.
Yeah.
But it
feels a
feels a little scary.
But
I mean,
if you
there's
block
so
a
many pump
token, then he
spells,
just gets another token anyway, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Tim Aten is going to be able to turn the tides on the beatdown plan here that quickly either, though that is also possible. If he had something like a populate spell
now
or
if he
something.
just blocks the 2/2, and I think Brian's just going to win it.
I meant if he blocks the 2/2, then that's great.
Yeah.
But what I meant was, let's say he blocks the 2/2 and loses the worm here. And, if he blocked the 1/1, he'd want to. His indication would be, well, I'm going to try to start attacking you and race this thing. But, yeah, he's just going to block the 2/2 here. This makes a lot of sense.
You guys need to play around the rare? You play around the Evan?
I see that there's another battering crisis in hand for Brian Haak. And I think he's got a Brush Strider and maybe the mutation.
A biomass mutation, which would have been, it
wouldn't have
already.
Done anything there.
It actually.
Because it just would have made it into a 3/3.
It makes you wonder whether or not the Battering Crisis should have traded, because Battering Crisis actually, those +1 counters go over the top of the Biomass mutation.
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't want to trade that. It also has trample, yeah. And
Right,
he's
but
making those 1/1s.
He does get to follow up with both of them. Tim Aten's going to attack with his worm. That's going to bring Brian down to 15 as it goes completely unblocked here, and he's just going to pass the turn back. So 5 mana up. Very suspicious if you're Brian Haak. There's something going on here.
I mean, it could be an Eyes in the Skies. It could be a Druid's Deliverance.
Yep. Wow.
Oof.
Voice of Resurgence.
That's a pretty nice
card
one.
that I know you're a big fan of, Jake.
I'm a huge fan of that
yeah,
card.
and there it is, Eyes in the Skies. Here's 2 tokens for Brian's side of the table, but there's a bird, and
And
how
a
about we
worm.
make another worm?
Pretty nice. I mean,
Rootborn Defenses was also an option there, but it was Eyes in the Skies.
notice how Brian didn't attack that turn.
Yeah.
Some good play on Brian's part there.
So when did that all happen then?
That on end step. No.
So he just said, voice, go.
Yeah. And Tim said, all right, well.
Yeah, I'm not going to not do it.
Yeah, I'm going to use my mana efficiently.
All right, so
Very
here's
least.
a Gatecreeper Vine for Tim Aten. And he finds a Rakdos Guildgate, which he's just going to put right into play. Now, that is his land drop for the turn. The Gatecreeper Vine just brings it to his hand.
Yeah. That gives him access to red mana or double black. He might have a Grizzly Spectacle in hand. He might have something huge like an Aurelia's Fury or...
Uh-huh.
And Tim doesn't know how close this game is because of Biomass Mutation.
No, he does not. Although that Gatecreeper Vine will help. You can jump in front of something, and it looks like he's content to just hit in with the bird token here.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't want to start trading off those worms for random things, or do you think that he has an idea that there could be a card like Biomass Mutation in hand for Brian?
I mean, he's got to know that there's... Brian's not playing lands, and he's got cards in his hand. And he's either got a big spell that he doesn't have the mana for yet, or he's got an overrun effect. And it's one of those two things. It can be hard to decide. I mean, it's probably a big spell and not an overrun effect, but you can't count that out, and I think we can expect him to play around the Biomass Mutation, at least to a reasonable extent. Looks like there's a pit fight here in Brian Haak's hand. So probably going to fight something with the Voice of Resurgence at some point and make a gigantic creature.
He can do that on end step,
Mm-hmm.
as long as the voice dies. Oh,
And
I
now
see.
it looks like Tim might just have a huge spell in his hand.
Yeah, I see. That's what I missed earlier. When Brian put Voice of Resurgence on the stack, that's when Tim Aten decided to pull the trigger on his Eyes in the Skies.
Because he didn't want to
him
give
token.
the...
Yeah. So it wasn't quite end step, but it did end up
Yeah.
virtually being end
Makes
step.
sense.
Yep. Wow, I think that was Rootborn Defenses off the top there for Tim, wasn't it?
It's a pretty good one.
It's pretty good. I mean, it used in its ideal form, it would give Brian Haak a massive elemental creature, but it would also blow him out pretty good. Right now, he can only Biomass Mutation to make 4/4s. And if all the rest of the creatures die, then it's pretty good. All right, so let's see what Brian has. He does have the pit fight, but he's just going to take down the Gatecreeper Vine. Huh. I wonder what Tim's thinking when he sees this.
I mean, now he's got to know that there's some type of...
Yeah, and there it is.
fishiness going
Rootborn
on.
Defenses is going to save the Gatecreeper Vine. It's also going to make yet another worm token. I wonder if that's the first time a Gatecreeper Vine ever been saved by a Rootborn Defenses. But I mean, Tim's got to be onto what's going on here. He doesn't have to necessarily know that it's Biomass Mutation specifically, though he might. I think it's a Tristani's Judgment for Brian Haak here.
Again, ridiculously strong card.
Yeah. And he's just trying to set up a situation where he can get in with enough of his creatures. Was that a Axebane Guardian?
I think he has an Axebane Guardian in.
Which is just another fine chump blocker here for Tim Aten, if that's what it is. All right, but he's had enough. He's going to start attacking. And he attacks with all 3 of the worm tokens. So that's 15 power of trample damage coming over against Brian Haak here. And it's going to make things pretty difficult for Brian, as most of his blockers have 1 or 2. In fact, all of his blockers have either 1 or 2 toughness.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, though, here is that Brian Haak can't he just block, with his voice and his battering crisis, go to 1, and then, or he can just Tristani's Judgment a worm, make a guy, and then Biomass Mutation and kill Tim, I think.
All right, let's see
so
what he does. So
Tristani's Judgment's pretty nice here.
Tristani's Judgment a worm, and that is going to get another creature which could represent 4 to 5 more damage on the table thanks to that Biomass Mutation. Keeps going back to those dice. Hopefully he'll get him another soldier. It's easier for us to see, too.
Yeah, Tim got very flooded this game. Look at his side of the table. I mean,
yeah, he's got 9 lands over there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he also has two lands in hand, too. So
okay.
Not really where Tim wants to be. That might be why he pulled the trigger, just thinking to himself, well, if I keep destroying lands, I'm going to, he's just going to outspell me.
Uh-huh. All right, so any blocks coming? So right now, Brian Haak, though, he's still concerned because, sure, he could take 10 damage, no big deal, but look at Tim Aten's board. He's got plains, he's got forests, he even has access to red mana, and he has all colors of mana thanks to the Promenade, but the important ones are, green, red, and white. There's all types of combat tricks that Tim Aten could have here that just win him the game this turn. Common Bond, Savage Surge, there's so many things that could just win Tim the game here, and Brian has to decide that if he blocks, can he still win on the crackback?
Yeah. Now it makes all of his guys into 4/4s.
And then if he does block and he can't win on the crackback, what does that mean for where this game goes? Because then if you're going to block, then you'd really want to try to work on getting those worms out of the way, right? You don't want to just throw away creatures here. All right, so he's gonna double block one of the worms here. That's gonna still leave him with 1 creature left behind, and it's gonna be pretty big. It's gonna be a 5/5.
Yeah. It's a worm of his own.
Now, does Tim have the option of not killing Voice of Resurgence here if he wants? He can just order the Breast Strider first and put all the damage on it.
It tramples.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
so I
does.
don't think you have the option.
I think you can just choose not
dump
to
it
kill
in?
it. Yeah, I think you can just say, because you have to do at least lethal.
You're right.
But you can do as much as you want. And it looks like that's exactly what he did here. And there's the Axebane Guardian as a follow-up, and he says go. So I think that's a pretty smart play. Voice of Resurgence is a 2/2, is much less scary than the 5/5 token that it would have left behind.
Yeah.
That 5/5 could have attacked on its own a couple of times too.
Ooh, it looks like Brian has drawn a land, meaning that his guys are all going to be
5/5s.
5/5s now.
He only needs to get through 3 of them, but currently he can't. Is he dead on the backswing? No, he's not.
No, he's not. I think
again, he's
go
open
for
to
it.
a trick, but he can certainly go for it here and essentially wrath the board if he wants, but he's going to leave a worm token back, and
then all Tim has to do is draw 2 points of damage, and
yeah.
But
That's
he
tough.
has
it's
to do
not
that.
an easy spot.
Yeah,
he has to do that.
I think Brian really just has to send.
So if he sends, though, his guys don't get trample, right? So it's like, let's say that 3 of them get blocked. He gets in for 10 damage. Tim Aten goes down to 4, and then Tim. I guess then at that point, Tim will have just the worm token, and he'll be facing down all of Brian's creatures, and so Tim would have to come up with.
Yeah, ironically,
some way.
because Tim didn't trample over for the extra 2 damage, he doesn't have the damage for the swing back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And the token from the Voice of Resurgence would have just been
yeah, vanilla.
Yeah.
Just a big beater, like same chump ability.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now if Tim does not put the bird token in front of something,
he loses.
remember the battering crisis does get the +1/+1 counter. All right, this could be it. Brian Haak just got to pull the trigger. Biomass mutation, and that's the game. Unless Tim Aten, you said you think he's just got a couple of lands in his hand?
Yeah, I think he just has 2 lands.
Yeah, he's taking 16 here. And that's it. Brian Haak takes the first game. Also, his teammate Shaheen Soorani has won 1 game against Cedric, but Cedric also won a game, so they're tied up. Maybe we should go over there and see if we can get a game 3 out of those guys. It looks like they're still getting shuffled up for the final game. And down on the other table C, Ryan Spring won his first game as well. All right, here is Cedric Phillips versus Shaheen Soorani.
Get to keep a hand, boys. Good hand? No.
Yeah, so
they're having a fun time talking to each other. You can hear them chattering.
Shaheen Soorani looks like he has a sweet rug deck. We've talked at length about how that's our favorite 3-color combination in this format.
Both you and me.
Yeah. We're similar in a lot of our limited theory.
We are, yes.
I found that to be true.
That is true. It has been consistently true.
Yeah. In conversations we've had with other people in debates, we've always sided with the other.
Yeah, and looked at the other guys like, are you serious? So Cedric Phillips is going to ship this one back and take a mulligan. I heard Shaheen say, I get to keep a hand. And then I think somebody asked him if it was good, and he said no. He did show it to his teammate, though. So he's either very proud of it or it's one of those sketchy ones where he's like, if I get there, I'm the luckiest. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he's saying that in the sense that his teammate has told him to ship everything back.
Yeah. He's going to prove him wrong here.
Because a lot of teams have that dynamic where some people keep looser hands than other people and, are very successful.
Yep. Shaheen Soorani, you may know him. He's a big proponent of Esper Planeswalkers in Standard. He's built some really good decks and had some really good success on various
He's a high school teacher.
He is.
And he runs a Magic club.
Seems like a good dude.
That's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. All right. Turn 1 Guild Gate for Cedric Phillips, and another Guild Gate for Cedric Phillips. It looks like he might have taken the multicolored one. Ooh, I see a Ral Zarek.
As do I.
In hand for Shaheen Soorani.
How kind that his teammates let him play with the Planeswalker.
Yeah, how did he get that lucky? And he plays. We see Cedric play a Hover Barrier on Riot Piker. He snaps a block off there, and there's a Gruul key rune for Shaheen. And that's going to give him access to Big Daddy Ral next turn. Wow.
Oh, that's a pretty good card.
Is going to change things significantly. Is this going to be a Runner's Bane? It is.
That's a pretty good card against
That's really good here. Does he have another land drop? He does indeed. Nicely, too, is that Runner's Bane taps the thing, and we see Cedric is committed to blocking every turn with the guy with his Hover Barrier, like almost pre-combat the block. There's a turn and burn off the top for Cedric Phillips, but a pretty nice Ember Beast here for Shaheen. This is going to be an interesting one. If Cedric doesn't get some pressure on the board, we have a chance here to see an ultimate from Ral Zarek. Potentially.
That'd be really exciting because, the play with Ral Zarek when you cast it this next turn is going to be tap Hover Barrier.
Yeah.
Unless Cedric plays something that has 3 less toughness,
Yep. Then he'll have to zap it. And that's fine. Shaheen is no stranger to playing Magic with Planeswalkers. He's very, very good at managing it. Normally, he's got Lingering Souls to help protect his Planeswalkers, but he doesn't now. All right, there's a Viashino First Blade. Apparently enters the battlefield tapped and attacking, and that flick on the top of it says it also has a trigger. And I'm pretty sure that Shaheen just took the 4 damage there. Cedric followed up with yet another Guild Gate and then shipped the turn back. And there he is. Ral Zarek hits the table. Now, let's see what he wants to do with Ral. He's going to start him off at 4. Are we going to go right to 2 and take out that First Blade, or are we going to go up and start tapping?
I like that he goes up.
Tick-tock. All right, no. Oh, he's changing his mind. Oh, no, he's changed his mind back. He says, wait, I don't know. Oh, this is going to be interesting because he certainly has a reasonable situation here. But remember, like, he can do a few different things. He can attack with the Riot Piker. Then post-combat, he can tap down something, doesn't really matter, and untap the Riot Piker so that it can block the Viashino First Blade and also unlock blocks for the Ember Beast. But he did not do that.
Oh, so he has Scar Guildmage in hand.
Oh, he's got a Scar Guildmage, so he has a follow-up play. And he's also attacking for 5 here. He tapped down the Hover Barrier, untapped the land, and followed up with Scar Guildmage. All right, so he's going for the extreme board development plan. Let's see if Cedric can find something. I think he still has that Turn and Burn in hand, so he can take out the Scar Guildmage and get in for 2 on Ralzeric if he wants. But if Shaheen gets to untap, he's got great options available, as Ralzeric will still be alive, and he has the Key Rune that he can activate as a blocker or an attacker if he wants. Got a lot of options here. All right, he's going to attack Ralzeric with the Viashino First Blade, and yeah, Shaheen says sure. Goes down to 3. And there's a Sunspire Gatekeepers, which is going to be triggered as well, thanks to all the gates on Cedric Phillips' side of the board. So Cedric is bolstering his board position here and looking pretty good, but he's still facing down Ralzeric and 3 different creatures. So let's see what Shaheen can do to try to keep this Ralzeric alive. I think he's got a Totally Lost in hand, a Mountain, and 1 card that I couldn't quite see. Oh, it's a Viashino Racketeer. So how does Shaheen want to use up his mana here? We know that the Riot Piker must attack. Now, if he wants to save it and he wants to plus Ralzeric, he can tap down the Gatekeepers, and that will keep the Riot Piker alive, though it won't get in for damage. It'll just get blocked by the Hover Barrier. He's got a lot of options here, though. He could also just kill the Knight with Ralzeric and keep back blockers. He's got a lot of things he can do. It's always that interesting tension when you have a Planeswalker like Ralzeric, where, like, you want to keep plussing him and trying to make him a threat, make him a factor, but ultimately if he ends up dying and you don't get anything out of him, you kind of just wish you would have just said, you know, I'll just kill something and at least get something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you kill something and then they use a burn spell to kill your Ralzeric, that was really good.
That
you got
was
a burn
good for
spell
you. That's
and
right.
you got a creature out of it.
Now going very deep and trying to flip a bunch of coins against your opponent is also a sweet option. All right, here we go. He's floating a mana and he's tapping down the Gatekeeper, so he's keeping things on the aggressive side. Here's a Totally Lost. What does he want to do here?
I mean, he can Racketeer and leave open
The mana. Can he
leave open
Racketeer?
mana for Key Rune.
Can he do that? Yeah, he can.
Yeah. I mean, he has some mana floating now, right?
He does. He has a green mana floating. There's second. And he's just going to activate the Key Rune right now. And he's also going to turn a land into a 4/4 with the Guildmage, and he is attacking with all of these creatures. It looks like he's even considering attacking with the Scar Guildmage. No, not going to happen. All right, everybody. So 3/2 trample, 2/1 first strike, 3/4, and a 4/4 land. Wow, Shaheen taking a very aggressive route. He's looking to use Ralzeric as a tempo play, as a mini Garrick Wildspeaker.
Tomorrow morning, and we are in our seats to start drafting at 9 a.m. So as you wrap up, make sure that you are headed back home to get some sleep.
It's pretty awesome the way Shaheen has played this game.
I really like
I
it.
don't know if anybody else in the universe would have played the game like this.
I don't think so. I mean, I agree.
I
like,
wouldn't
this
have,
is a-
but I mean, this is
a
awesome.
very interesting line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Table for 12 packs per player.
I would have just killed the first blade and then gotten my Ralzeric turn and burned and tried to grind the game out that way.
Mm-hmm. Cedric does have burn available here if he wants to use it, but it looks like he's content to trade a Key Rune for a Knight token and block the 4/4, take 2 damage, take another 3. So Cedric Phillips down to 9, both at Ralzeric, and Ral's down, and there's a Maze Glider to follow up.
Yeah.
Not too bad for Cedric. It looks like, Ground Assault, I think, off the top for Shaheen Soorani, but he is just going to take this turn to Totally Lost and attack for 5, though only 2 of it's going to get through. It's going to drop Cedric down to 7, but you got to feel like Shaheen's down here, right?
Yeah, Shaheen's in a rough spot.
He blanked a draw step there, but he needed to have a much bigger punch. That hover barrier is doing serious work for Cedric Phillips. It's prevented tons of damage. It's basically been, a removal spell. It's just been whatever your best creature isn't getting through.
It's been a martial law.
Hey, I like that card. Maze Glider hits the table again for Cedric Phillips, and let's see what Shaheen Soorani can come up with here. Is it Racketeer o'clock here? That's a 3/5 with flying, Shaheen, so you got to do something. Get rid of that land that he just drew, and he's going to draw a Spell Rupture, which is a little bit late. He's not going to keep the mana open for it. He's just going to take that thing down with the Ground Assault, and he's going to attack with both. And unfortunately, the Riot Piker just dies, and there's not much that Shaheen can do there. Cedric Phillips at 7 life. Fairly precarious life total, but he's really stabilized here. A 2/4, an 0/6, and another 2/2. Keeping him in a pretty good spot here, but he is top decking.
You have to wonder if, Shaheen Soorani played this game in a very interesting fashion, but you have to wonder if he had just killed the first blade and then had Cedric turn and burn his Rouse Arc, how different would this game have been?
I'm curious, yeah. I mean, he took a very aggressive route. He took a tempo-based approach to the game where he thought he could keep Cedric Phillips off balance just long enough to get in for lethal damage. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to, but fortunately for him, Cedric has drawn nothing but lands, and he's going to want to start playing those lands, as we know that Shaheen does have a Spell Rupture in hand. Cedric is drawing nothing but lands, and he's just dumping them on the table. Shaheen's got to cringe every time Cedric does this. Another land for Cedric. He doesn't play that one, though, and there is not going to do enough here.
Not very good. That hover barrier continuing to do a lot of work.
Pursuit of Flight is what he drew, and unfortunately, it doesn't get either of his creatures above the 6 toughness or 6 power to get through that hover barrier. Remember, hover barrier has flying as well, so pretty sweet. Cedric flooding out hard, but he's going to be blanking. I mean, right now, Shaheen is holding a mana leak. He could turn it into a you have to pay 5 if he wants to just throw that Pursuit of Flight haphazardly on his Ember Beast, but that just doesn't have a lot of upside. All right, and that's one of the reasons why it doesn't have a lot of upside, is that Cedric Phillips just drew Void Wielder, and the sad part for Shaheen is that he can cast it and still pay the 3, and that's without even playing one of the lands from his hand. He's got 3 of those.
Had he played the Pursuit of Flight, he would have been able to Spell Rupture the Void Wielder. But I mean, but then what's the point? The Pursuit of Flight doesn't advance your board states. You're playing it to be able to counter a spell to protect it. You know,
and unfortunately, honestly, for Shaheen here, the Void Wielder is going to bring back. Okay, now let's see if Cedric goes for it. This is the big one, land, and he got him. Shaheen Soorani is going to get to Spell Rupture Tajik. Wow. So out of that exchange, Cedric just gets a Void Wielder down, which doesn't really do much on this board state. Oh, and a little bit of value here for Shaheen. He's kept a land in his hand. In fact, he's kept 2. So now that he's drawn that fairy, he's going to bounce his guy. He's going to get to pitch a land and draw a card. And was that Armed and Dangerous?
It is. So he's going to...
Wow, Armed and Dangerous off the top.
Oh, my goodness
now,
gracious.
He's good. So next turn, so what he's going to have to do here, though, is he needs to put the Pursuit of... he's going to want to put Pursuit of Flight on something here, Dangerous something else, and then get in there for the victory with Armed and Dangerous. It's a little bit risky.
Well, he can just Armed Dangerous and give the Ember Beast +1/+1 and double strike and make everything block.
That is lethal. You're right. That is totally lethal. Yep. Wow. So 6 mana here for Shaheen Soorani, and if this resolves and nothing horrible happens, we know that they're all lands in Cedric Phillips' hand. And look what Shaheen's doing. He's going to play Pursuit of Flight to try to draw out a removal spell. He's going to say, look, do you have the Electrickery, maybe? Something along those lines? And Cedric says, sure. This also gives Shaheen more information. He can try to get a look at Cedric and say, is he just doing the thing where you pause and then they're like, yeah, sure, it resolves, I'll allow it style, or not? And try to get a read here. But here it is, 6 mana, Armed and Dangerous. So arm up the Ember Beast and make something dangerous. You got to make it a ground guy, right? Because they have to actually be able to block it. So it has to be the Racketeer here.
Yeah.
So if he does it to the Fairy Imposter, then that's That's a very bad situation for Shaheen. It looks like he's thinking about it. He really only has one choice here, as far as if he's going for the win this turn.
I mean, you have to, right?
Whoa! He did it to the imposter. Oh, he gave the imposter double strike. Okay, that's also lethal.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. Okay. Actually, isn't it only 6? 2, 4, 6?
No, it gets double strike. So
so it's
6
4
and then plus 3.
5,
so
6,
9.
7, 8. Yeah, okay. It was 8, right? Oh, +1, Yeah, 6, 9. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It's been a long day apparently. But
it has
anyway,
been a very long day.
He
for all
had
of us.
multiple avenues with which to win there, and he found the right one. So Shaheen Soorani picks up the first match for his team. As we go back down to the middle table, which is Tim Aten on the left versus Brian Haak, we saw Tim Aten lose a very close one, and it looks like Brian Haak may have just won this one. No, maybe Tim Aten did. I can't tell who's attacking here. There's so many tapped creatures.
Well, it looks like they're still battling,
It
so
does.
I assume Tim won.
I think so too. Also, all those things. Wow, this is a full
This
board state
match
down here.
is so
too.
good.
This is crazy.
This is why Team Limited's the best.
AJ Sacher on the left, Ryan Spring on the right. There's a Tithe Drinker, a Zanikev Locust.
I mean, it's
There's
a battle of the air. I mean,
Rakdos
normally your flying creatures are.
A Rakdos Drake, Guardian of the Gateless for AJ, and on the right, Ryan Spring's got a Kingpin's Pet. He's also got an Asperia Skywatch, his own Rakdos Drake, a Night Token, and a Sunspire Gatekeepers. Right, life totals seem pretty stable. 13 for AJ, 18 for Ryan Spring. 1 card in hand for Ryan, and it looks as if AJ's got 2. So I think we've kind of hit that parity middle stage of the game where people are hoping to draw that big spell to break things open.
And I mean, if Ryan has a removal spell, then he's going to want to save it because then he knows that AJ is going to aggressively trade with the Locust with the Skywatch.
Yeah, because then
he can scavenge.
He can scavenge onto his Gatekeeper, Guardian of the Gateless, and then that Runner's Bane will fall right off once he does. And all of a sudden he'll have a 6/6 flyer, and it can block the entire team if he wants it to. So he has to be very careful not to kill that thing. And that's interesting. So
we
it's
have
a
pretty
assassin.
Exciting card from AJ once he draws another land.
What did he have? I saw that he had
Teysa.
Oh gosh, and he drew.
That card is good.
He pseudo drew a land here. He drew a Clue Stone, and he's going to pay an Extort. He also has Launch Party in hand. So, if he feels like he's never going to get that Guardian of the Gateless out from underneath that Runner's Bane, he can just launch it at something. Right now, though, I just don't think he feels like he's under that much pressure. Sure, he can start getting dinged with that Thrill Kill Assassin, but it's too damage.
He is under the pressure of the clock, though.
Which
Neither
clock?
of these teams want to draw. The clock of
that clock, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
sure,
but he needs to win this game and then win another one. I mean, there's plenty of time.
Yeah, I think we've got plenty of time in the round. Ryan Spring is already up a game.
It is like an Esper mirror, kind of. You know, and don't get me wrong, like AJ's Orzhov, but his deck plays very similarly to the Esper deck.
That's true. Looks like Ryan is considering an attack with his Thrill Kill Assassin. I mean, that's why he played it, right? You don't unleash it if you're not planning on sending it in. Nothing's changed on the board from last turn as far as blockers go. He actually just changed his mind. He's like, no, just go. And there's Teysa with an Extort for value.
Drew the land.
And Teysa's going to completely change the complexion of this board state as now all of a sudden, we've seen this before. You're not going to like what you're reading there, Ryan Spring. Teysa has protection from creatures, is a 4/4.
And it also gives you a No Mercy.
Yeah, whenever any creature deals combat damage to AJ, that creature is going to be destroyed, and there will be a 1/1 black and white spirit token with flying on AJ's side directly after that.
Yeah, I mean, once you need to kill a player who has Teysa in play, unless you get the Teysa off the board, you only have 1 attack left.
Yep, that's right.
That's basically how it works.
Each of your creatures get in for 1 battle.
Yeah.
And, with
and you
AJ
need to do it all in, otherwise they're going to get a ton of 1/1 flyers, and then your other attacks are going to be terrible for the rest of the game.
And AJ's looking to be in really good spot here because he does have the ability to extort basically every turn. I mean, he's got 2 spells in hand, plus he's got a clue stone that he can cash in and his natural draw steps. And what that means is each one of those, is essentially blanking creatures on the side of Ryan Spring. Because, if you attack for once with the 3/3, but he's extorted 3 times, well, that just didn't do anything.
Yeah, and I really like this attack with the Locust now by AJ, too, because if Ryan does choose to trade with the Locust, then next turn AJ is going to be able to scavenge onto the Teysa, and then the Teysa is a 2-turn clock, because Ryan's going to 14 this turn from the Teysa, and then the Teysa becomes a 7/7 with attraction of creatures. So great math there on AJ's side. Something I'd like to point out.
I like that. Dead Reveler comes down for AJ. No unleash, but yes extort. Another land here for Ryan Spring. He's got a ton of them, and both players do. It looks like he's getting ready to pass a turn. I wouldn't be surprised to see AJ crack that clue stone here. He's carefully left up mana for, we're going to read Teysa again. That card is a game breaker. Unblockable. Can't attack into it. Even if you can get around it, your guy dies.
Yeah, I mean, it even has vigilance and protection from creatures.
Yes.
So it's just
so good. All right, he decided not to crack the clue stone there. All right, same exact attack here from AJ Sacher. He is looking to be very much in the driver's seat here as Teysa is just taken over this board. And looks like the Asperia's Skywatch is going to jump in front of the Xanakev Locust, and AJ says, I'll
and at
take
this
it.
point, that's got to be the right play.
Yeah, because otherwise he's dead next turn. So.
Yeah. And I mean, he's going to be dead next turn anyway from the scavenge, but.
Although that does, because that's the thing. See, look at what AJ decided.
Oh, he just scavenged onto the Guardian.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, what if Ryan does draw an answer for Teysa here? That would be pretty. Eggs, basket 1, etc.
I mean, AJ does have extort on the table, so even if he gets in for just 4, it's still going to be.
There's a Jelen Sphinx for Ryan Spring, and he also paid an extort thanks to his Kingpin's pet. It's also a nice size flyer here, but AJ can just finish things off right now with the launch party if he wants. That's going to put Ryan down to 2 and make Teysa lethal. So here's a launch party on your Jelen Sphinx, sacrifice, whatever.
Yep. And then I attack you, and you're dead.
And then you're dead. It's going to, remember, there's a loss of 2 life involved here as well. So it looks like AJ is in prime position here to, he just ships the guy in there. He knew he had it, and he's going to equalize there. So Shaheen is the only one with a match win here. He beat Cedric Phillips 2-1. And let's go back to the middle table here. Tim Aten on the left. He just equalized after losing a very close one to Brian Haak, who won off the back of a biomass mutation in game 1. And it looks like he's doing pretty well here too. He's got a Thrashing Moss Dog. He's got what appears to be a 3/3. Oh, I see. It's a Voice of Resurgence token. You see Voice of Resurgence up in the graveyard there. And he's also got a Daring Skyjack. I believe we're on Ryan's turn. We are. And he is going to play Alive and Well.
Yeah, I think he's just got the Centaur half, but still.
Yep, you're right. And it looks like the question here is, does he want to attack with anything? He decides not to. He wants to play around Advent of the Worm. And I don't see exactly if that's what Tim had. It's either that or Eyes in the Skies. Either way, he would have lost his Skyjack. It looks like it is just Eyes in the Skies this time, though. If Brian knew that Tim had just Eyes in the Skies, he would have been able to send in with his 4/4 and his 3/3, but he just didn't want to suicide them into an Advent of the Worm token.
Eyes in the Sky's still pretty good here. I mean, there's a Daring Skyjack on the other side of the table.
Yeah. Tim certainly wants to keep developing his board here, though, as just the 2/1/1s aren't really going to be blocking those 3/3s and 4/4s for very long. But Tim has just passed the turn back again. Now he could still represent the Worm token here, but not really, right? I mean, wouldn't Tim have just played Advent of the Worm and then just left up Eyes in the Skies this turn?
I don't know. I mean, maybe
it's a tricky play.
Yeah.
All right, there's an Ooze token. Those aren't counters. It's just a 4/4, so we'll have to remember that in case Biomass Mutation comes into play, but he's marking it as a 4, but it's really just a 4/4 creature.
And that's a Voice of Resurgence token on Brian Haak's side of the board.
I hear the players are talking about playing around Advent to the Worm now.
I mean, if you can afford to play around something, and you feel like you're going to win if he has it, and you do play around it, then you might as well, but...
Looks like he's decided not to. I mean, worst case scenario here, he loses a Centaur. If he loses the Thrashing Moss Dog, sure, he'll get value out of that later. The 5/5 would trade anyway. All right, it's Putrefy on the 5/5, so that's gone. That was the Elemental. But still 2 3/3s coming at you, Tim Aten. And
I think Vine's probably just going to chump something.
Tim's at 14.
I guess, yeah, there is a 4-power guy on the table that Vine could always chump next turn.
Yeah.
And
like
that's going to make a difference. It's an extra damage he doesn't have to take.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, here comes a 6-drop.
Ooh, a Scab Clan Giant. That's pretty nice.
So that is going to take out something here. That's great. These are all very worthy targets. You would be happy to take out any of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess he's got.
So 9, 10 are rerolls.
I guess so. There's an 8. So it took the Skyjack out, which is really the least desirable of all the targets, but still happy to have it.
Yeah, I mean it's a 4/5, and a board where there are a bunch of
4/4s and 3/3s.
4/4s and 3/3s. Yeah.
So this is excellent. That was an excellent turn of events there for Tim Aten, as he is pretty stable now. He decided not to attack with any birds because the Thrashing Moss Dog has reach.
And not only that, but he knows now that his opponent has the overrun effect and biomass mutation, so he really does need to play the game. Like that doesn't give trample, so you can always play around that. You really just want to get your opponent dead.
Yeah.
Before they can take the game over. You want to keep their board clear.
Drop. Is it Tristani's Summoner? What is it?
Looked like it was down and dirty. Yeah, so he's
getting back Putrefy and
making his opponent
has to discard. All right, so in response, he's going to do that. And wow, he's got Beckon Call.
See, down and dirty. I was talking about that earlier.
You were right. And
I like that card a lot.
That's kind of like Mind Rot, yeah. And very, very grindy card.
That's a pretty good Mind Rot. It also got a Putrefy back.
It did. Yeah, it did. I mean, it's not an aggressively costed Magic card, but its effect is powerful. It's for sure. If you're in a state where Tim Aten's at now, I mean, that's going to put him pretty significantly ahead here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great game 2/3 card for Tim Aten's deck because his opponents are never going to attack into him because he has Advent and Eyes in the Skies and Rootborn defenses.
Yeah.
So games are going to go long, and his opponents are going to be holding back tricks.
Yep.
So down and dirty is always going to be a 3-for-1 for big value.
Yeah, especially really expensive tricks like Biomass Mutation. You know, that you're trying to craft an entire game around the turn when you can pull the trigger on that card. All right, another Thrashing Moss Dog. But that doesn't really do enough here, as the 4/5 is still holding things at bay, and there's Advent to the Worm right off the top for Tim Aten here. But he's got another play. He's just going to play an Axebane Guardian. Still no attacks. And we are at parity, my friends.
Yeah, it looks like we've...
and we have broken parity. Now there's a 5/5.
Yes.
This is a pretty nice situation for Tim. If he wants to start getting aggressive, he can attack, he can trade it off for something. The problem, of course, is that Brian knows he has the Putrefy, so it gets a little awkward. He could just throw his whole team in front.
And that Axebane Guardian taps for a lot of mana right now.
2?
Yeah, I mean, 2's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot, yeah.
Especially when it's any color combination and he has Corrosive Guildmage in his hand.
Does he have it in his hand?
I think he does.
Oh, man.
And Corrosive Guildmage, when you have access to that much mana and these many creatures out.
It is insane.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah, that is absolutely nuts. It gives you a lot of flexibility as far as giving creatures. He's going to give it +1/+1 and
yeah,
and intimidate, it looks like.
Yes, he is.
The problem being, of course, that his 2 big creatures are green.
Yeah.
So if he gives them intimidate, it doesn't really get him that far, given that Brian Haak's board state is all green creatures. Is that a pit fight there?
It is, and he's probably going to pit fight away that Guildmage.
Now, Tim can sacrifice the Guild Mage in response here and get a couple of sapperlings, but looks like he decides not to. I mean, what I mean by he decides not to is Brian decides not to. Letting the Guild Mage stay alive can be risky business, though. Ooh, is that a Courser's Accord, too?
It is. Makes a 3-3 and a 5-5.
Wow, Tim Aten, his board is going to be absolutely insane as we move forward here in this game, and it looks like Brian Haak has kind of hit the brakes a bit. I mean, a few 3-3s and a 4-4 would normally be a pretty formidable board state, and in the middle part of this game it was, but now Tim Aten's just doing bigger things.
Yeah, and I mean, remember, Brian Haak had a biomass mutation and a beckon call.
Yeah.
That were sitting in his hand, and I mean, if he ever drew a blue source, like he basically would have won because he would have made 4 flyers and then drawn 4 cards and had biomass mutation to go with those 4 flyers. You know.
Yeah, that's a pretty reasonable board state there. All right, so Tim Aten's going to bolster his board with another worm and a centaur, and just pass the turn back. Nothing else. Looks like he decided not to attack with the bird that time. He does have the mana to pump, though.
Surprised he didn't get in there with like 1 worm there.
Just trade it off for a Moss Dog?
It's traded for the slime. I mean, his opponent, like, yeah.
Or for the slime, sure.
I guess his opponent could double block with Moss Dogs, but then you just trade it with a Moss Dog, and that's fine, too.
I guess it's okay.
Well, you just pump it, and then you get both Moss Dogs.
If he you what?
You just pump it with your Guild Mage,
oh, yeah,
you get
sure.
both
well,
Moss
and
Dogs.
also remember, Tim's still holding Putrefy.
Yeah, so I guess...
So you know, Brian will not just double block, because he just gets blown out there. But he could triple block.
Yeah.
And you still have the same options. All right, here's a pit fight. Deciding if they want to do the pit fighting now.
Looks like he also has a Tristani's Judgment.
Oh, he's got a Tristani's Judgment as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just going to take this hit. It's not that much. I think
I mean, it's only 4.
Yeah, I think it drops him down to 14 here. All right, so there it is. Sacrifice the cross to Guild Mage. He's going to get a couple
I
of
need more
sapperlings.
tokens.
Yeah, because I need more blockers. Yeah, so they're trying to decide if he gets to populate the ooze token, and he shouldn't, right? No, doesn't resolve, gets countered by the game.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a legal target.
Yep. I think that was a Chromatic Lantern off the top there for Brian Haak.
Yeah, and not very good now that there's no beck and call on his hand.
Yeah.
It's a pretty dead draw.
Sad.
It is pretty sad. You
Down
want
and
to see
Dirty
that
was
card fused.
Very dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see that card fused on camera. I haven't fused it myself. I've had somebody do it against me. It was about the most miserable experience I can remember. Recent memory.
I've done it to somebody.
I'm
sure they felt
really,
pretty miserable
I'm
too.
so sad right now. I want to be the one doing that.
It's like the most fun thing in the world.
Ugh.
You draw 4 cards and get a whole bunch of things to protect you or attack them. All right, so now at this point, Tim is kind of just grinding this game out.
Yeah, he's in full grind mode here. He hasn't attacked in forever, and he's got a cross to monitor now. Looks like he's going to wait. He's going to be patient.
Oh, these Selesnya mirrors.
Hey, I can match your cross to monitor with my own. He just says go. Wow, is that a Vraska?
That is a Vraska.
Oh man, I was just saying that that Tim was, basically waiting for something to kind of break this stall open, and it looks like he's found it. Vraska the Unseen, and he's immediately gonna use it to kill a Thrashing Moss Dog. It looked like. Is that what he pointed at?
Yep.
Yeah, Vraska's got a lot of sweet abilities. including destroying permanents. All right, so since that thing was going to die anyway, he's going to fight the centaur with his thrashing moss dog with the pit fight.
Yes, so now we are, here we are. It looks like...
Now, Vraska the Unseen is going to remain very unseen, at least to Brian Haak, since it can hide behind just an absolute wall of beef. I mean, that board state is pretty incredible for Tim Aten. And there's going to be a scavenge onto the centaur token here, make it a 6/6. Can at least force a blocker of some sort here if he wanted, but looks like he's going to decline that. I think they're talking about turn 0 here. Are they in turns?
Oh, it looks like Tim
Ryan Spring
already lost, so at this point he's just putting on a show for us.
Okay. Well, we'll watch until the show's over.
Yeah. I don't mind watching the show.
And then we're going to go to sleep, and we'll come back in the morning and fire up the show again. So after this is over, we're going to be out of here, but we'll be back tomorrow morning, 10-30-ish Eastern time.
So roam back right out. Tim still neglecting to attack here.
Yeah, who wants to attack?
When you're having that much fun with planeswalkers and stuff.
And remember, he's still
you got a bunch of worms, and you've got a putrefy that you've left mana open for the last 11 turns. And
never be too careful. Oh, he's pulling the trigger. He's going to take out the big centaur. It looks like Tim Aten may have had enough here. He's going to be able to kill something with Vraska this turn if he wants and start beating down. We'll see what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, he could just Vraska and kill.
He does. He takes
monitor
out the Krasna monitor.
He can just send his team,
might
right?
have lethal here. I mean, is it 8? He doesn't want to. Yeah, get him in there. I like it. Just turn everybody sideways.
With style.
I
like it.
I love it. All right, and Brian Haak concedes to Tim Aten, who gets the pride match on camera, but unfortunately